talk about crumbs. And, you know, my first response is, have you ever been offered a crumb? You know, there's a lot of times that I work with a lot of kids sometimes, and they'll break me off something with their grimy little hands, and they'll break me off a little crumb of something, and they'll give it to me, expecting me to put it in my mouth. And, you know, that's when I'm starting to think, oh, what can I do to get out of this? You know, it's like, oh, it looks really yummy, I'll save it for later. Or, you know, it's like, it's so yummy, you need to keep it all for yourself. You know, kind of slip it to the side, do anything I can not to put it in my mouth, or even, you know, go, oh, yuck, you know. You've got to be kidding me. But, you know, then there's times when we sweep up the floor, we see how much has fallen to the floor. You know, I can always tell where our son, he's much better now as an adult, where our son had ate, Sean, you can always see by the crumbs on the table and on the floor around him. You can always say, Sean ate here. You know, crumbs overall are just, are real unappetizing, they're messy. And today we find a woman who's not, in this story, she's not only content with the crumbs, but she actually finds her heart's desire in the crumbs. Matthew chapter 5, we'll start in verses 21 to 28. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. Jesus did not answer a word, so his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. He answered, I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. He replied, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Yes, it is, Lord, she said. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Then Jesus said to her, Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted, and her daughter was healed at that moment. The word of the Lord. Shall we pray? Lord, we just pray that you bless the reading of your word, that you bless this word, and bless the ears that hear. We pray, Lord, that we can have to our understanding and your spirit would sweep through. Anoint this word today. Amen. You may be seated. Well, Jesus and the disciples, they were trying to escape, you know, or at least try to get away for a while. If we go back to Matthew 6:13, Jesus and the disciples were trying to go to the other side of the sea when they ended up hosting a meal for 5,000 men plus women and children. And I really don't think that was a getaway. At least any of us that has hosted any type of a dinner for more than a few people know that hosting a dinner for a few people is no getaway. And now we see that these disciples and Jesus, they're retreating to a place that was on the margin of where the Israelites and the Canaanites resided. It's an area of what would be modern-day Lebanon. This land had been actually granted to the Israelites, you know, to the people of Asher, the tribe of Asher. But that tribe and the Israelites never conquered the land. And now, in the time of Jesus, it was inhabited by Canaanites, who were the oldest enemy of Israel. If we read back, we talk about the Canaanites all through the Old Testament. And they were the people that worshipped other gods. They didn't eat like the Israelites. They ate unclean things. They had customs that weren't holy. And they were actually the people that God centuries earlier had said to purge from the land, to preserve the purity of the Israelites. They were purely unclean people living in an unclean land that had not been purified. And it's here that Jesus and his disciples met the Syrophoenician woman, the Canaanite. You know, she was a Gentile woman from an unclean land. And according to the Jews, she was truly, truly low on the social ladder. Unclean land, unclean people, and a woman. Most generally, someone to be avoided. And you know, we think back about the prayer of the righteous Jewish man of that day. Thank God that I was not born a Gentile, a dog, or a woman. And she stood in dark contrast to that prayer. What Jesus and the disciples was actually doing here is really unclear. It may have been they were trying to get away to a place that they weren't overwhelmed with people who were seeking out Jesus' miracles. They may have just been looking for a quieter place so Jesus could prepare his disciples for his upcoming crucifixion. And he may have just had an appointment with this woman. We don't really know because the Bible doesn't tell us. But whatever the reason for Jesus and the disciples being there, Jesus was known, at least he was known to this woman, to this unclean woman. She began yelling out to Jesus, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and terribly suffering." The words from her mouth made it known that she not only had heard about the miracles of Jesus, but she knew who he was. He was the Messiah, the Lord, the Son of David, who had been prophesied about. She knew, even though she was a Canaanite, she was a Gentile, she was a woman. She knew who Jesus was and was seeking him out for the solution of her problems. Most likely she had tried many different cures for this child of hers, and there had been a lot of failed attempts. She probably had sought out the help of the gods of the land. She had probably tried anything logical that could have helped. Sometimes we try things that aren't logical, and they'd all failed. But now she was seeking out the one and only Savior. Whatever reason, she was seeking out Jesus as the answer to her problem. But there was one problem. Jesus was ignoring her. He wasn't answering her. Her pleading was so bad that the disciples started pleading. They started pleading with Jesus to help her, to help her so that she would start leaving them alone. It was the kind of pleading that you just want to say, okay, enough, whatever you want, just go away and give me some peace and quiet. I know any of us that's had kids can say we've been there. Even it doesn't have to be kids. Sometimes it can be husbands. No, Jeff's really not that bad. I'm sorry, Jeff. But Jesus' response to the continuous pleas and the disciples' request, he responded with a response that's very unlike the Jesus that we've come to know. You know, the Jesus that heals, he extends mercy and grace. The Jesus that helps, heals, meets needs. Jesus has the audacity to say, for everyone to hear, that I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. What a letdown that statement had to be for the woman and the disciples. He wasn't going to do anything. Really, I think we'd probably actually get more shocked than they did. This was a pretty typical Jewish response. I think as Gentiles that we forget Jesus was sent first to the Jew and then to the Gentile. We forget that Jesus was a Jew. And the purpose was that the Jews would so shine as the people of God that all men would be drawn to God. We actually lose our focus that we as Gentiles were grafted in and we weren't first to start with. You know, some of those Jews have lost their graft, have been pruned out. But as Americans, the attitude that we have and the way that we think a lot of times, this first world attitude, sometimes we need to be reminded that we weren't always first. Although Jesus rarely distinguished between the Jew and the Gentile, he knew that he was first called to the house of Israel, and if it overflowed to the Gentile, it was still within his purpose. So throughout his rest of his Gospels, he often did minister to Gentiles, but it was through ministering first to the house of Israel. And it was after his death and resurrection that the whole world came open for a Gentile people. He was first a Jew, and that was a very typical Jewish response. But this lady, she didn't stop. She began to worship. After she'd been ignored, she'd been put down, she worshiped the very one who had inflicted that on her. She fell down before him and simply acknowledged him as Lord. And she asked for help. Sometimes I believe that the most holy prayers are the simple ones, crying out help to the Lord in our time of need, acknowledges him as Lord, and states, you have no higher place to go, and that you acknowledge that he is your answer. But then they began to talk. This opened up a conversation with Jesus. He acknowledged her plea with, it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. That was another blow. Because dogs in that era, they were not the pampered, groomed parts of the family that they are now. How many of you have a dog that is or has been part of your family? Yeah.
I like 3 dogs.
They were mongrels. They were unclean animals that roamed the streets looking for scraps to be fed. The term was also a term used for the Jews often used to refer to the Gentiles. Remember the prayer? Glad I wasn't born a Gentile, a dog, a woman. So Jesus was referring to this woman and his daughter as unclean animals, dogs. But if we go way back to the original, the actual word he used was actually puppies, which makes it a little better because puppies are cute and everything. And in this era, puppies were allowed the security of the home 4 times, and they were allowed to eat crumbs that fell at the table. Well, after this lady had been ignored, she'd been insulted, she put down, she continues to go to Jesus. She replies, yes, it is, Lord. Even the dogs eat crumbs that fall from their master's table. I believe that she was saying that the leftovers, the grimy, cruddy crumbs, the messy parts from Jesus were enough for her. A little crumb's enough from you, Lord, I think is what she was saying. I don't have to have it in a perfectly wrapped package. It doesn't have to be this big thing. If it's from you, a crumb is enough. It's all I need. I'll take the leftovers. Jesus responded to her in a new way than he had before. He said, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed at that moment. Sometimes in the silence of Jesus, our faith is allowed to mature. We get challenged to see what we cannot see, what's really not there. When we hear nothing and we see nothing happening, our challenge is really to hold on to the Lord that we know. The one who longs to be with us and walk through life with us. You see, even though this lady was not hearing Jesus, even though she thought he was not hearing, Jesus was. He was there all the time. Sometimes we feel rejected. At the same time, Christ is drawing us to him, drawing us to worship. And remember, he is Lord in spite of the circumstances. That he is creator, he is savior. Even though we feel rejected, Christ is there all the time. Then we're challenged to accept what we don't feel is the right thing, the right response. We want the clean thing, the whole thing. We have to remind ourselves that anything from Christ is good. It's just what we need, even when it doesn't look like it. Christ will challenge us to be content with what he gives us. As little as it may seem, he is with us all the time, and he does know our needs. As our faith is challenged, matured, and resistant to denying that Christ isn't there, we find ourselves healing, not only find healing for ourselves, but also for our household and the people around us. Crumbs, although they may seem like there's something to reject, something to put to the side, something not to take into our lives, they can be quite a blessing. Today, I just want to ask you if you're rejecting the crumbs that have been offered by Jesus. Through his silence and what seems like rejection and insults, have you held on to one crumb that brings life, healing, and salvation? Remembering that Jesus is there with you all the time, that he never leaves you, never forsakes you, that he is the bread of life, and he is the one that can meet all your needs. I just want to give everybody an opportunity to pray today that it's like they've had crumbs offered to them. They've rejected. I think we've all done that. We've all been there. And we've all rejected the little that Christ has given us at times. The warm touch of a family member. We've rejected, and we felt like it was done because they had to. Kind words from a friend, we reject them. We say, I'm really not that good. We reject what happens around us, and we reject God's goodness in little ways that's offered to us from friends, family, even people we don't know sometimes. And sometimes they give us those crumbs and we want to push them aside. Instead of taking them in and believing that they are truly from God. That he's meeting our needs in little ways that can grow into big ways. Let's pray. Father, today we read this story and we see this lady who took her crumbs, and she was so willing to take the crumbs. And I just want to repent today that there's been so many times that I've rejected those crumbs. And I try to push them aside. And I don't enjoy the gift that's in them. Father, we just pray that today, as we consider your offering and what you give to us each and every day, may we take it as a blessing and know that your grace is sufficient for all of us and all that we do and all that we say wherever we